This is Magnolia Manor. It's a bed and breakfast in Bolivar. It's famous because it was the headquarters for 5 Union generals during the Civil War, including Grant and Sherman. This home is where Grant and Sherman had their altercation. They were having dinner downstairs with Mrs. Miller, who was the original homeowner's wife. And Sherman made the comment that he could win this war if he could kill all the Southern women and children, because there was so much going on in Bolivar where they were helping the Confederate cause, you know, behind the Union Army back, and he couldn't get it stopped. And Mrs. Miller started crying. And General Grant demanded that General Sherman apologize, and he refused. And he took out his sword and whacked it across the banister, and that mark is still there today.
We're in Bolivar for the annual Historic Homes and Buildings Tour. The 2007 tour includes 9 homes and 3 buildings, plus a wide variety of quilts.
In yesteryear, people, after a cold, hard winter, they would air their linens outdoors. Now, they didn't wash things. They aired them, beat them, rugs. They just didn't wash. That's why they're so well preserved, because they didn't wash things. And that was, we thought, well, the airing of the quilts, how colorful, how pretty it would be for downtown to do that. And of course, Bolivar is undergoing downtown revitalization, and we wanted to showcase it, and we thought it'd be so much fun to do a walking tour and to showcase downtown Bolivar and to use the theme, the airing of the quilts. It'd be so colorful.
In slavery time, they had tacking quilts as ways to communicate. And this way, they took the tacking quilts and maybe hung them out on a picket fence or a line, so that when the master came by, he didn't know what was going on. So you may have a tacking quilt that was hung up, and it was maybe there was a song being sung about a color. And in the middle of this quilt, you had this big square where it had these colors at, and you may have had these notches out in there, and it told that maybe the notches represented plantations, and you had 5 notches in there. So these notches said that you had to pass 5 plantations. So in another strip, you may had white strip and had 5 green notches. So in these ties there, they may have been representative of 5 trees that you had to pass to get to another farmhouse that was going to be a safe haven for the slaves.
The Chisholm home was built around 1900. It's a late Victorian home with distinctive rose-painted weatherboard siding. The original property extended to the local tannery, so corrals and grazing cattle were an ordinary sight.
The art that I have, my husband and I collect a lot of that. Some of the sticks depict stories that are told by different ancestors that told stories that was handed down from generation to generations. And others are, like the ships that I have, are depicted of maybe the Spanish ships that would have carried slaves from Africa to Americas, where over the waters where the slaves were brought to the plantations, or here to Americas where the slaves were sold. We all have a rich heritage of things that we can contribute to this world and everything else, and all of us have some history that we have given to this world. And our history books just need to show us a little bit more of that.
This home tour has actually been going on a long time. The first record of it was in the 40s, which amazed me that they did a home tour in the 40s of Bolivar. They don't have much record of that. But about 25 years ago, Madonna Circle had a home tour here and did it for several years very successfully. So APTA, when it was formed, needed a fundraiser.
Bolivar is full of history. It began as Hatchie Town on the banks of the Hatchie River in 1823. Flooding and soggy ground required the move to its present location in 1825. The town was then renamed to honor Simon Bolivar, a South American patriot and liberator. Hatchie remained a river port serving keelboats, flatboats, and steamboats. Many of the homes here served as hospitals and military headquarters during the Civil War, the owners living upstairs. Over 100 structures in Bolivar are on the National Register of Historic Places.
Bolivar is kind of like a sleepy little town. We still have all the features of a little old southern town. It's quiet, relatively quiet. It's up to date, we hope it livens up. But there's just a lot of things about Bolivar they're fun, to do, and just kind of a lovely little sleepy town. Coming down the street, what a lovely view, with the trees overlining the street.
The little courthouse is one of a few log courthouses still standing in the United States. The building was moved to its present site in 1827 and converted to a residence. It is now a museum in which visitors can see the jail that occupied the second floor. Across the street from the little courthouse is the Levite Joy House, constructed while the Joys lived in the little courthouse. This house was built in two sections, the west side with hand-hewn lumber and peg construction. The east side, built later, used newer techniques. The house was used as a hospital during the Civil War.
Rufus Neely was a general in the Civil War. He owned this home, and his family was still here. And his daughter was known for standing on that balcony and singing Dixie while the Union troops marched down the street. And after being warned several times, she was arrested. This is the Dorrit House. One of the things I think is interesting about this house, a little tidbit, is it's had 17 owners in 180 years. So it's gone through a lot of families, had it, but it's 180 years old.
The frescoes my sister painted in the style of 1837 when this part of the new wing of the house was built, done like scenic wallpaper that the wealthy would do. They wanted scenes that were panoramic that looked like Europe in their houses in Tennessee and most of the South. That was very popular. So she's repainted them in that style after taking down 12 layers of wallpaper, down to the original blue milk paint, which she used as the background for the sky. So it's the milk paint, the blue sky is actually from 1837.
As with many of the homes of this era, the main bedroom was downstairs just off the entry. This room features original bed curtains, a protection from summer insects.
Emma's dress has been in our family, in the West and Carter family. It dates from about 1900. My grandparents were married in 1901. And her cameo dates from 1860, so it's from the time of the Civil War. And our Miss Catherine, our friend's dress, is a mourning costume from about 1863 from Godey's Lady's Book. It's an exact copy of one from then. And I'm in mourning clothes from about 1826 when the original part of the house was built.
This is the Mitchell House. It is a craftsman-style house built in 1923. What I like about it is that dormer up there that has the windows on it and the hip roofs. It's a very sturdy style of architecture, but it's all in its own. With it inside, it has the beautiful wood beams, a lot of dark wood, but just really pretty, and the fencing around the front of the house that makes it all craftsman. The pillars, the small pillars, just beautiful.
Miss Mitchell lived here most of her married life. She was around 24 years younger than her husband, and he built the home for her. She lived here till she passed away. I understand she worked for a florist here in town when she was in her 90s even. There's a big story about her backing out of this driveway that she would get in her car, put the gas on, and just zoom right out into the street. But she lived in the front room of the house until she died. But she raised 2 children here. The lights in the dining room are original to the home. It is said, legend or not, that the day that Miss Mitchell died, the last original light bulb that was hanging in the light fixture burnt out.
The Bolivar Home and Historical Tour is held annually, usually in the first week of May. This year, the Hardeman County Master Gardeners provided a living quilt of plants and flowers. The tour is a delight on many levels: architecture, history, antiques, and genealogy, to name a few.